crucify him.
And crucify him.
So Pilate left, and then they took, and the crowds began to leave. And they took whips, and they were on both sides of him, beating him and hitting him. And it says in the scriptures that they beat him beyond belief, that his visage was so marred that they could hardly recognize who he was. And they beat him. And then they were making fun of him and laughing. Ha ha ha! You call yourself a king?
You call yourself a king?
Oh, we'll make you a king. And they took and they put a crown upon his head. And they laughed at him and said, now you're a king.
Now you're a king.
King of the Jews. And they took him by both hands. And they took him to the cross. Golgotha, the place of the skull. And they took him. And they hung him upon the cross. And they stood guard. And the women, his mother, Mary and Joanna, went. And then the crowds began to gather as Jesus was hanging on the cross. And the women were weeping horribly. And they knelt down at the foot of the cross as the crowds began to gather. And Mary said, my son, my son,
My son, my son.
as she wept for her son who had done no wrong. And then Jesus looked out over the crowd, still having compassion for the people, and said, my Father,
My Father.
forgive them,
Forgive them.
for they know not what they do.
For you know what they do.
And then all of a sudden, it started to thunder and lightning, and the crowd got so scared. And they thought it was the end of the world. As Jesus hanged in shame on the cross. And then Jesus said, my God, why have you forsaken me?
Why have you forsaken me?
And then as he hung there, he said, into thy hands I commit my spirit. It is finished. And he died. And the ladies left the tomb. And the women left the tomb. And as Jesus hung on the cross, the women were so sad and crying. And as Jesus hung on the cross, it was nearing the Sabbath. And it was a custom that anyone that was crucified and was hanging on the cross, that they had to be taken down before the Sabbath began. So it was their custom that they would go around the soldiers and break the legs of